Hello. So today I want to look at the new Messianic Rahul Gandhi that we're seeing. This is a 52-year-old man, somebody who, as he said in 2005, I could have become prime minister when I was 25. In 1995, when Narasimha Rao uh, was prime minister, suppose Rahul Gandhi had come in, uh, Rao, it's a fact, would have deferred to him. And he would have become a 25-year-old prime minister. And the fact is that you see, when a young man, a dynastic young man, when he makes mistakes, electorate forgives him. They may push him out this time and they say, well, reflect on your mistakes for a few years while the other guys run the show. But when you come back, you're on just as Rajiv Gandhi, that's what happened with him. He came in at a young age as prime minister, but then there was the problem of Bofors, of corruption, BP Singh, even Arun Nehru, his cousin. These guys rebelled against him, so he lost. But he was certainly on the way back. And in fact, that's why he was assassinated. The Tamil Tigers calculated that he was bound to win the election. And he'd, rather foolishly, he'd said in an interview that he might send the army back to Tamil Nadu, to Sri Lanka. But actually, Rajiv had absolutely no wish to harm the Tamil Tigers. He was saying things in a different context. But by then, you see, the Tamil Tigers, they had become close to the Khalistani. And in fact, the Khalistanis helped them. So they had that narrow window of opportunity to kill Rajiv before he could become prime minister and get the extra security. And the only place they could do it was in Tamil Nadu, where they had obviously strong support from the DMK. So this is a tragic situation because the fact is that Rajiv made some mistakes because he's young. But the electorate was going to forgive him, and he wouldn't have made the same mistakes twice. Nobody would, in their right mind, would want to take on the Tamil Tigers. You know, Indians should stay away from that. Of course, we should. Now, let's turn to Rahul Gandhi, and I would like to just ask why Bharat Jodo, this yatra, this sort of pilgrimage, this walking tour from the south to the north, what could it have achieved, and what has it actually achieved? Well, to start off with, we must remember that when Rahul Gandhi came into politics in 2004, when he stood for election, he was already, at the time, he was 34 years old. Now, he could easily have become a minister. Suppose he'd been made an external affairs minister, maybe minister of state, that's fine. But the fact is that just like Bilawal Bhutto, who is 34 right now, and Bilawal Bhutto really has helped Pakistan greatly. He's been there for a short time, but the fact is that, he's getting things done. Why? The answer is that anybody he picks up the phone to speak to, they know that they're speaking to a 34-year-old whose mother was prime minister, whose grandfather was prime minister. He's 34 years old. For at least 40, perhaps 50 years, he's going to be very important in the politics of that region. He's a dynast. That's the point about being a dynast, that you have that kind of favor bank, ancestral favor bank. You have those ancestral relationships. And when you start off and you're young, people say, let's do him a favor now. He'll remember it in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time. And it doesn't have to be a quid pro quo. You see, with Bilawal, we know that suppose tomorrow, in 10 years' time, he's out of power. He's in London in exile. Still, suppose I want to reach out to a rival of the Crown Prince, or and this guy and that guy, I ring Bilawal. Because he can do it. Because, that name recognition is there. He's a brand. And he has, the loyalists of the Bhutto party, I must say, it's like a religion, they will martyr themselves. So the fact is that nothing wrong with dynasts. And we have in India, we can see Scindia family and other families, Amarinder, and it's a fact that these guys, uh, they inherit something. They inherit a loyalty which can be very useful for the country. Just as Bilal's, the fact that he's a dynast, it's been helpful, very helpful for Pakistan at a time of the floods and of this and that, and you know. So I'm not against dynasts, of course not. I live in Britain. we, we have the royal family, you know. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, Rahul, when he came into politics, he said, "Look, I could have become prime minister at 25, but I didn't. I'm not interested in power. What I'm interested in is completely changing the entire Congress organization to make it, like a grassroots sort of organization, like the Republicans, Democrats, and the Labour Party and the Tory Party." And you see, because Rahul, he had studied at Harvard, he had studied at Cambridge, he had spent that time, quite a good chunk of time outside India. So, young man saying, now what I'm going to do is that firstly UP, I'm going to take back UP, Uttar Pradesh, which is where he comes from. But we know that that failed, and we know that it was a foolish thing for him to refuse cabinet office in 2004, to refuse to become prime minister later on, because the fact is that then everyone knows that he could have done the job, but he didn't do the job. So he's seen not as a worker who can learn from his mistakes, but he's seen as a shirker. And a shirker can't learn anything at all. They can criticize endlessly. They can say, "Oh, this guy who's doing the job, he should be doing it like this." But the job was offered to you when you were 25. You didn't take it when you're 25. You didn't take it when you're 35. You didn't take it when you're 45. You're useless. You're a shirker. You can't make any criticism now. It would be, when you see the 15-year-old Greta Thunberg, she's just a kid, and she had some, I think, autism or something on the spectrum. But she found a voice for a year or 2 years. She was not able to speak because of, I don't know what exactly. Neurodiverse people, wonderful. We appreciate diversity. She found a voice, and she was challenging the people in their 50s or in their 60s. She was saying, "What have you done to the planet?" And that was effective because her generation, she was 15, they had never had the chance to exercise power. But Rahul is 52. He had that chance when he was 25. He had the chance. He hadn't taken it. So at this late hour, he can't now transform himself into a Jayaprakash Narayan or a Vinoba Bhave or a Greta. But in fact, it's Greta Thunberg. And don't forget that with Jayaprakash Narayan, he said, "Oh, I won't come into parliament. I won't take cabinet office. I won't become PM. I will do Bhutan." But then the Naxalites called him. He went to speak to the Naxalites. He said, "What's your problem? I've done Bhutan. Why are you still so angry?" And they showed him. They said, "There is no bloody Bhutan. It's a fraud. You've wasted your time." At that point, he said, "Oh, then now I have to come into actual politics." But he was still not standing for election. And that he and Acharya Kripalani, these are two men who they weren't even able to consummate their own marriage. They were both married, but couldn't consummate their marriage because wives had become Gandhian. They said, no, celibacy. Kripalani's wife became a chief minister. He was useless. So Kripalani and Jayaprakash, these two eunuchs, who do they choose to be prime minister? It's Morarji Desai. On what basis? Morarji Desai, unlike the other chaps who used to go obediently to jail and make stupid speeches, Moraji Desai had actually worked for the British. He was in the provincial civil service, deputy collector or whatever in Godhra. So Godhra, so there will be riots in Godhra. And British censured him, saying that he'd been too favorable to the Hindus, which with hindsight, was probably the right thing to be because we know about Godhra. Everybody knows about Godhra. So that's when he comes into politics. And everybody in Congress would say, well, we hate the bastard. He's arrogant, he's stupid, he's useless, but he's a good administrator. What do they mean? They meant that, come se come, he was a deputy. That at least he's a sort of a sergeant major of the, sort of a very strict bureaucrat of the old British style. And we need that. This is crazy because Raji was in the provincial civil service. He was never meant to rise high. He was just supposed to be a mini Hitler in a small bureaucratic office. While the ICS officer above him, that's the executive level. They'd be managing things and doing deals and getting things done. So these two cretins, Jayaprakash and Kripalani, who hadn't even consummated their own marriages, they put in Moraji as prime minister on the basis that everybody hates him. So it cancels out. They hate each other, but they hate Moraji more, so make Moraji prime minister. Disaster. Indira Gandhi came back and she established a dynastic party. And as I say, dynasticism is not necessarily a bad thing. It solves the coordination problem, it reduces rent contestation. There's an economics behind it. But sadly, Rahul, he misused his dynastic privilege to tamper with the organizational structure and to interfere in, we saw more recently after he had quit as Congress president, his interference, and that of Priyanka as well. She was also useless. Their interference in Punjab and, elsewhere, completely disastrous. So, the fact is, this is not just a shirker who didn't take the job he was supposed to take. He didn't even take over the running of the Commonwealth Games. His father had done that for the Asian Games. So, it was in the script, but he wouldn't do it. Shirker, not a worker. But whatever work he's done, it's useless. Adds negative value. Now, the purpose of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, it's basically to go, because, he himself had to shift from UP, Uttar Pradesh, from the north to Kerala to get elected by Muslims in Wayanad. But what that means that, previously Muslim League, All India Muslim League of Kerala, that they had 3 MPs, Lok Sabha MPs, 3 safe seats. And as OIC says, previously at least there were 3 Muslims from those seats. But now one of them is taken by a Hindu. And during this yatra, suddenly he has started gone crazy on mandir and, putting tilak and, So now Muslims of Wayanad, they're not going to vote him back. But the other thing that's happened is that instead of really building the party at the grassroots level, by basically on every day issuing statements saying, well, in this district, we're now going to concentrate on XYZ issues. We're going to be reaching out to civil society, to NGOs, so as to tackle these issues. And, building up and encouraging our party district committee manager, the so-and-so, she will be doing this liaison and we'll be monitoring it. And so it's a very patient and long-term sort of thing, not very exciting, but it would do a lot to rejuvenate the booth management and grassroots. And then it would become a model that can be duplicated elsewhere. So to rejuvenate the party, just keep having these yatras. But that's not what's happened. And what's happened is that the fellow, walks briskly, talks some nonsense. and then starts giving crazy speeches. What's happened is that, you see, the worst outcome possible is where Rahul at 52 suddenly thinks that he is the Messiah. And the problem with messianic figures is that they're highly polarizing. Now, because Rahul has become messianic, you know, he's walked too long in the sun, unka to he's gone a bit crazy, and he started to believe his own propaganda and become convinced that he is a universal savior for India. And it's a very Manichaean view where all evil is created by BJP RSS. Hindutva is very evil. If there's anything bad happening in India, if anybody is being killed, if there's any hatred, it's all the fault of just BJP and RSS. And he is the Messiah. That other people can't see it. He can see it. And he knows because, my daddy's assassins. Many of you don't know this. They were my friends. But they were not his friends. They were security guys, military guys who were there. And yes, I played badminton with the kid because they were not friends. A servant is not a friend. A security guard is not a friend. So, he's lived in a cocoon, and suddenly, he thinks that he's Mahatma Gandhi and that he's the Messiah. And that, But don't forget that messiahs get shot. What happens is that people start to believe that they do have some magical power, but then they experience cognitive dissonance when that magic fails to work. In the case of Mahatma Gandhi, a lot of people said, look, he's going to pull it off. He will avert partition. Muslims at the end, they'll say, forget about the jihad and all that. Come on. So no partition, British leave, everything will be peaceful. You just wait and see. Mahatma, God is on his side. This miracle will occur. But no such miracle occurred. The fact is that Lal, Bal and Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai and Bipin Chandra Pal and of course the great Tilak, these were the revolutionaries. This was the Garam Dal. And but by 1918, they had understood that age of empire is over. And the question is, can we unite as secular nationalists and have a united India, which will be highly beneficial? And the trick there was that the Muslims of India, they want a united India so as to help the Muslims of Turkey, MENA, Indonesia, etc. So anti-imperialism. And in fact, if you left Annie Besant in charge, she's a white lady, that would reassure the British, white lady, because a Dyer and company, the die-hard Tories, they were saying, no, white women will be raped and killed. But Annie Besant is white. Furthermore, she'd been a trade union leader a feminist trade union leader in England. Byronton May Match Girls, she'd led that strike. So Annie Besant is exactly the right figurehead to have. But Mahatma Gandhi doesn't want her because she's wearing nice clothes. She should be wearing dhoti or khadi. She's wearing a push out Tilak. And Tilak, in fact, had done a deal with the Labour Party, which was rising. And in fact, it was Gaikwad. Gaikwad had given him £2,000. He gave it to the Labour Party. They were grateful. And immediately, 1918, Labour Party manifesto, Ireland and India, we will get them independence. And Labour did become the ruling party as part of a coalition in 1924. By then, Ireland had already got independence. Egypt had got it. Afghanistan had got it. But because in February of 1922, Mahatma Gandhi, the crackpot, he had surrendered unilaterally. He said, I don't give a damn about, which meant he was saying to the Muslims, I don't give a damn about Khilafat. I was joking. It was a case of dhokha tha. So after that, there can be no alliance, and by 1932, Second Round Table Conference, Mahatma Gandhi has achieved the impossible. He has united everybody against Indian National Congress, including the majority Hindu, non-Brahmin Hindus of Madras Presidency. They, the Sikhs, they're against INC. Why? And 1939, Mahatma Gandhi firmly says, simply writes in an article, he says Congress is a high caste Hindu party. It's craziness. Anyway, Gandhi may have been right to say that, look, let's keep the British on as long as possible. I mean, he didn't say that, but that was the effect of his actions. Because, there's Pax Britannica. Pax Britannica means the peace created by the British Empire. And when there's Pax Britannica, then you can do ahimsa, because you don't have to worry about any invasion. British Navy will take care of that. Don't have to worry about rape and looting, and because police will take care of that. So then you can do ahimsa, 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 ahimsa. But so Gandhi wasn't. I mean, he's a hypocrite. Politicians are hypocrites, but there was some method to his madness. Now let us turn to the latest speech. By our wonderful Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Let me cue it up on the yeah.
जो राम भगवान थे, उनकी एक सोच थी, उनके दिल में एक भावना थी, उनका जीने का तरीका था, वो सबका आदर करते थे, वो नफरत किसी से नहीं करते थे,
So Rahul is saying that Lord Ram in the Valmiki Ramayana, that you say he was a man with a certain ideology, that he never hated anybody, that he respected everybody, but this is all false. Lord Ram was a person, he's a very nice man, but he hated the guy who kidnapped his wife. And he went off and fought a war and killed that guy. And now it's true that he was not a male chauvinist, that he said, look, just because I have won the victory, military victory, doesn't mean that Sita is my property and that I have reclaimed my property. No. She can go off and marry anybody she likes, or she can, because just the relationship between Ram and Sita was not one of property owner and slave or something like that. Of course, she resented it greatly, and women must have the last word. So she entered the fire. And that causes the happy ending whereby, the father, the Dasharatha, and all the other people who were slain, they all come back. Big party, it's wonderful. So this is a beautiful story. But unfortunately, Rahul, let's hear more about what he thinks.
सबसे प्यार करते थे, सबसे गले लगते थे, और जब हम हैरान कहते हैं, हम निर्णय करते हैं कि जो राम जी की भावना थी, उस भावना से हम अपना जीवन जिएंगे।
So basically, Rahul is saying that, if you say Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, that, you're removing all hatred from your heart. But problem here is that this guy has a lot of hatred for the BJP and the RSS. Now, he's pretending that all violence, if it were the case, suppose it were the case, that any time, some woman is beaten to death and chopped up, it was done by a member of the RSS. Suppose any time some South Korean vlogger, she's, attacked and assaulted, it's done by an RSS man. Suppose all the various terrorist acts and all suppose they were all done by the RSS. Suppose there was no religion in India which denounced Hinduism as idolatry and said that Brahmins should be chased out of the country. Suppose this were the case. Then, you might say, well, the RSS is like Ravan, that these guys are not human. These are demonic. So, and what Lord Ram did was that he fought against demons, Rakshasas. Then that's okay. But he loved all human beings. That's okay. But that's not what Rahul is saying. He's saying that Ram loved everybody. Yet Rahul himself seems to have great hatred for the BJP and the RSS, when the simple fact is that very, very few murders or terrorist incidents or pogroms or anything of that sort can be attributed even by very corrupt police officers, even by the previous administration. Even they could not get those sort of charges to stick. So what Rahul is really saying is that, yes, there are violent people. It's not the Indians know. It's not the BJP, it's not the RSS. But he, I think for a reason of moral inversion, or because of his own, the fact that he's a shirker, not a worker, that the BJP has taken the job, Modi has taken the job that he was supposed to come to him because it belonged to his daddy. His daddy had the job, his granny had the job, his great-grandfather had the job. But Modi took the job. And so for Rahul, the BJP represents the invading Muslim and the invading British and the invading Scythians and Hunas, the Huns, that they are the bad guys.
देश के लोग राम भगवान की जो भावना है उसको नहीं मानते, क्योंकि अगर मानते तो इस देश में जो नफरत फैला रहे हैं, जो हिंसा फैला रहे हैं, वो कभी नहीं फैलाते। जो किसानों के साथ वो अत्याचार कर रहे हैं, जो युवाओं को वो बेरोजगार बना रहे हैं, जो महिलाओं का वो अपमान कर रहे हैं, वो कभी नहीं करते। तो मैं आरएसएस के लोगों से कहना चाहता हूँ, आप राम भगवान को समझिए, उनकी भावना, उनके जीने के तरीके को समझिए। उन्होंने सिर्फ प्यार की बात की थी, भाईचारे की बात की थी, इज्जत की बात की थी, नफरत की बात नहीं की थी, हिंसा की बात नहीं की थी। तो जब भी आपको कोई आरएसएस का व्यक्ति
So this is interesting. You see, the fact is that Lord Ram did refuse to take the crown because he felt bound by the vow, the promise given by his father to his stepmother, to one of the co-wife. And if you actually look at the Ramayana, what Ram says is that, look, the co-wife, the mother, she is equal to my own mother. So to respect my own mother, I have to obey her, and that's fine. In a polygamous family, it's very good if the eldest son obeys not just his own mom, but the other co-wives. That's excellent. And he goes away 14 years. But that's not shirking. You see, when Ram goes for Vanas, he is not shirking. He's still a worker. It's just that he is constrained by a vow that his father had given, and he has to respect the demand of his. He considers her his own mother. Even, not biological mother, but she's the wife of his father. So, but Rahul had never given any such vow to say that I'll be shirking for 14 years or lurking in some forest for 14 years. That's not the case. He, as he himself says, he could have become Prime Minister at the age of 25, and Narasimha Rao would have been delighted, because Rao's power to change things would have increased if he'd had the charismatic 25-year-old who, don't forget, electorate will always forgive a young man if he makes a mistake. They'll say he's learned from his mistake. Let's vote him back, give him a second chance, give him a third chance, because he's learning. And with Modi has made mistakes, but the voters have given him a second chance, a third chance, because they know that he won't repeat the same mistake. He's learned from his experience. But Rahul has learned nothing, he's forgotten nothing, and he is now in a messianic trance where he himself is Ram. But Lord Ram was a worker. After Vanvas, even in Vanvas, he fights a big war. And then he returns and he rules. He's a ruler, he's a worker, he's not a shirker. And this is mad. You meet a guy from the BJP or the RSS, and let me tell you, I have met people like that. But I don't say Jai Ram to them. I don't say Jai Sri Ram. You know why? In the case of the one chap who can tolerate me, he's Muslim. And the only reason he can tolerate me is because he finds my Urdu poetry hilarious. I'm Madrasi. But, a lot of people who volunteer with these sort of organizations, they have good jobs and professions, and they wouldn't really want to be seen, because of the very hostility that Rahul Gandhi has created. But it's not just him. I mean, it is part of that culture, a paranoid culture, woke culture. But sadly, it's a very anti-national culture. And it is difficult to blame this young man. I mean, he's 52, he's 7 years, 8 years younger than me. He's 7 years younger than me. I look like shit. He looks fantastic, and I'm so happy because we love this family. They're a very good family, and the fact is, the Shankaracharya of Dwarka Peeth, he's there's a very good reason why he stands by his family, why he did the Graha Pravesh at 10 Janpat Road for Sonia. By under his auspices, she did the dip in the Ganges, holy Ganges, in what was it, 2001, was it, in Mahakumbh, in Allahabad, Prayag, as I should say. I'm supposed to be Hindutva. But, she did the rituals, even for Sanjay. Sonia Gandhi, she was the head of the family. I mean, she was the eldest daughter-in-law. Both the brothers were dead. And she did the proper, obsequies for, even for Sanjay. So, this is 2001. 2002, she said that with the help of Shankaracharya, we will build the Ram temple. Don't please malign a Pativrata lady like Sonia Gandhi, who has never harmed Hinduism at all. These ideas came later, and it wasn't because of her, it was because of the so-called intellectuals and woke nutters who ventriloquized. They pretended that, oh, Rahul is a dummy, Sonia is a dummy, we are smart, and they would propagate worthless anti-Hindu, crude stuff. But sadly, Rahul is now repeating that. He's pretending that the only terrorism and violence in India is created by BJP, which is mad. Anyway, I must say, looking at him, I like him. I don't want him to be Messianic because messiahs get shot. They get killed, because they arouse expectations. They create a Manichaean view of the world, and then when they fail to deliver, cognitive dissonance drives the sort of credulous people who would otherwise believe them, drives those credulous people to kill them. So please, don't spend $500,000 a day on this useless yatra. Spend it on, grassroots work and, smart things. But fostering this messianic delusion in a very stupid young man, well, he's not young, very stupid middle-aged man, is folly. And it is really to betray the feeling of what we owe. I feel what we owe Rajiv, the airline pilot, and Sonia, the housewife, Pativrata housewife, who never harmed our country. By she never had that tatparya, she never had that intention. Anyway, I've spoken too long. Thank you.